Hello, everybody, and welcome to Catalyst of Change. I'm your host, Alexia Cito, and in Catalyst of Change, we ignite conversations to inspire and transform, and I am so excited to welcome our very special guest, Jillian. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, Alexia.
It is so good to have you here. So, Jillian is an absolutely next level herbalist, businesswoman, entrepreneur. She has been in the holistic health space since 2009 and has served thousands of people around the world. She has studied under hundreds of naturopaths and doctors. She has done extraordinary research. She is an iridologist. She has her own company and she's into manufacturing. So she plays into a very multifaceted role within the holistic health space. And I'm just so excited to dive into this conversation with you.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see where this is going to take us.
Yes. So I think one of the first things I wanted to touch on is one of your products.
Yes.
Cognitive lightning.
Cognitive lightning.
Because I remember the day you had sent me a package of cognitive lightning, this beautiful herbal supplement, and guided me, the dosage, everything to take it. So I took it. I don't know what you want to call it. I'm like, this was not a placebo effect, but it was like literally within, it felt like seconds to me, but I don't know if that's just my head. It was like instantaneous. It was like I had this herbal concoction and I have tried. You walk down the path of Herbal Planet or whatever, Whole Foods, Healthy Planet. Like I tried the supplement.
Yes.
I tried that and I swear let's just call it 5 minutes. I think it was faster than that, but I'll just be conservative, I guess.
Conservative 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No big deal.
No big deal. It was like energy, clear mind. I literally felt like my eyes were clearer. It was profound to the point where I think I messaged you and I was like, girl, like, what is this? Like, this is amazing. And so anyways, I wanted to kind of just start there because the magic of not only herbs, but the combination and the way that the herbs impact the recipient, like, what could you share about that? And just kind of like using, for example, that product as like a starting topic.
Yeah, totally. This is definitely my version of Limitless, the pill. And it was created after years. It was about several different years of testing different combinations of herbs and hearing for so long, oh, well, I'm a huge fan of this ginkgo or lion's mane or L-theanine or all these different things. And then actually testing them real time with people over the years to see what was effective. So I did not just give away my formula, by the way. You're still going to have to wait for that.
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, there was a lot that went into the thought process because as I started to work with people with focus issues and short-term memory loss and, problems with just feeling like they could recall information and learn fast, I realized that there was massive gaps in what we're being taught, in what the public understands that they can do for this. Most people think that they're stuck. They're just like, I just have to deal with this. I'm horrible at focusing. It's like, nah, like you walked your way into that path. Something happened or you were born with it. But either way, whether it's genetics or whether there was paths that you walked that led you to not having good memory, there's so much that people can do to get themselves to like another level of like, oh my gosh, is this really my brain? And that was the path that I took. So yeah, your experience was pretty phenomenal. I loved your video. I loved your testimonial. It's really, really normal for people to take cognitive lightning and for them to come to me and say, I'm used to taking Adderall. I'm used to taking Ritalin. What the heck? This was great. Thank you for giving me something that didn't just drain my battery, but give me the focus. Like this was the perfect kind of harmonizer. So with going back to your question, it's really having to start from almost like the zenith point of, well, what is it that causes focus issues and memory problems and issues with concentrating and learning? So that
brain fog.
And the brain fog. And the brain fog, absolutely. So what I like to say to people is it's not like it's a cure-all. You're definitely an example of someone that's like an average above average, even like generally healthy human being. So you're strong to respond to it, right? I have a lot of other people in your position, much less health, that have phenomenal experiences. But that being said, it's like, okay, where do I start with this? So most of the time when it comes to why people aren't really remembering things very well is most people, they're walking around with massive deficiencies in fat, healthy fats. I'm not talking fat like butter or turkey or chicken, or I'm talking like more like omega-3s, lecithin, and vitamin E. These are a little bit lesser looked at, but they're so essential for making sure that the neurons are firing and they're speaking to each other, and that you're able to have really fast reflexes and good flow. So there's an element of fats and filling in the gaps there that are so valuable and important when it comes to memory. That's one aspect that the product touches on. The other aspect is that it actually balances blood sugar. So you know the people where they're like, I could kill someone if I'm hungry. Like, I will take out my knife right now and like I will fight you for that food, right? Because they just go and they're just like lacking in the stability of the blood sugar, so their mood gets really low. They start getting anxious, and all the while they're not realizing, oh, it's not your mood, it's your insulin, like it's your hormones that are out of whack. So this product actually really is balancing for blood sugar.
Wow.
So you could use this product as a weight loss support.
Wow.
You could use it for that. Yeah, because two of the herbs in particular, they're used for supporting digestion. They're metabolism enhancing herbs. So there's an element of the blood sugar balancing that's key. So fats, filling in fat deficiencies, helping blood sugar. Another big component is, I found when it came to Western herbal medicine and Western nutrition, they don't really talk about memory that much beyond maybe, let's say, like coconut oil, using coconut oil or MCT fats to help with your brain. Those are really, really great. I love those as a food additive. I had a lady who came to me several years ago where she had gotten to stage 3 Alzheimer's disease. So her memory was like really bad. She went from cooking every single day, being able to speak, to like she couldn't speak. Her husband came to the session. He was speaking the entire time for her. Wow. 6 weeks into working with her, she was having direct conversations with me.
Wow.
It was like a total 180. And so even the way that I worked with her, a bunch of the herbs that are in cognitive lightning was a part of it. I gave her also like really high doses of MCT oils and coconut oil every single day. And we like filled her up on a ton of like food-based B vitamins and then some other food habits. That in 6 weeks got her to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, you've regressed from stage 3 back to stage 1.
Wow.
So it was like such a miracle, and most people don't realize that like food and herbs can have that strong of an impact, right?
Yes.
So this is a really key factor. I noticed that when it came to Western herbal medicine and nutrition, they don't go beyond coconut oil, right? With memory, I had to look to more Ayurveda, like Indian studies, to get into the memory support. So, for example, one of the herbs in the formulation, it has 300 studies for childhood ADHD, noticeably improvements by 30 to 40% improvements in learning.
Wow.
So like recall.
Huge.
Yeah. It's massive.
40%.
It gets better. They tested a group of 300 people between the ages of 46 and 75, men and women, and they noticed that there was a 65% cognitive improvement in all of them for short-term and long-term memory.
Wow.
After 3 months of use for two of the herbs that I used in the formulation. So there's a lot of research that's kind of lingering in these other cultures that aren't as much research locally, but it's like still, wow, like these are groundbreaking studies. So I remember when I first got into testing people with herbs, oh my gosh, like at the very beginning, people would be like, I'm taking ginkgo biloba and I'm doing capsules and it's not really working. And I'm like, your dose is off. Most of the memory products in Canada and the USA, they tend to really under support, or they tend to, so a lot of the times the dose that Canada and the USA will tell companies to put on their regulations, the label will often be like 4 times less to 10 times less of the dosage than what someone needs for a therapeutic response.
Mm.
So the problem is not always what you're taking, it's the dosage.
Wow.
It's like you're taking an ineffective dosage. If you want to maintain the level of stupidity you're at, yeah, keep taking that dose. But if you want to get around it, then the dose needs to go up.
And that's why it's probably so beneficial to work with someone like yourself who can guide someone directly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's one thing to do some research online, and then, you know, there's lots of people who say, this is good for this and this is good for that, and it could be helpful to a certain extent, but then when you get to work with someone on one-on-one, they can like formulate something specific to you and what you need.
Exactly. Because I think even the nootropic industry has really risen. Like people that are interested in microdosing and using mushrooms and using lion's mane to help with, you know, their productivity. We're now in what's called the third wave of the psychedelic rise. So the first wave was more prehistoric, you know, times of using mushrooms. Then it was the 60s of like, psychedelics for partying. But now we're in kind of the third wave of psychedelics where people are using psychedelics for productivity, right?
Yeah.
Cognitive lightning is not a psychedelic, but it's a nootropic,
Right.
The herbs that I'm using are very nootropic. So a lot of people familiar to that world of microdosing, they should know about a product like cognitive lightning because they work so well together.
Yes.
They're so synergistic, but there's gaps in what microdosing will do. It's not necessarily going to drastically improve your memory like something like cognitive lightning.
Yeah. I also want to just like mention that we did not plan this to come up in the, like, I just naturally brought this. So this is not even like a product placement or anything like this.
No.
Yeah. Just dawned on me when I was looking at you and I was like, oh, this would be a good place to start because it had such a profound impact, you know? So just so that the viewers realize that, because I was thinking about like, I'm like, because it's so profound. And one of the things you mentioned was the childhood ADHD. And this is a big topic.
Huge.
So what are some of the understandings or findings that like have spoken to you in your research or just in your development of some of these herbal protocols that may, you know, be interesting for people that have ADHD themselves or have children with them? Like a lot of adults do as well. So I'm just curious, like what did you kind of find in that realm and how would something like this help?
Right. There's so much. So a lot of the times it's about dopamine. It's about helping to regulate dopamine, and it's about supporting the nervous system at the core of it, because most people, when they get stressed out or they put themselves into like overwork, all of the time that I see a person going into overwork for longer than 6 months, it's like they are doomed to start to have like things just degrade in their system. Their stress system gets really overwhelmed. So whether you're an adult or a child, you will always benefit from supporting the nervous system. It's almost like the system that's least supported, and the nervous system is so connected to the brain, the spinal cord, like all of the organ systems are so impacted by stress. So even a lot of research nowadays says that 80% of all diseases are psychosomatic. So they have an emotional base at the core of them, right? Something that's not being processed properly. So that's going to affect the nervous system. So if you support the nervous system, everything else is going to heal so much easier in the body. And when it comes to children, what I've noticed just working one-on-one with the kids is it's the blue dyes and it's the red dyes that are really messing with the little guys, as well as MSG or monosodium glutamate, commonly found in Chinese food, has now found a way to have 30 plus different names in the market. So now it's going by yeast extract. It's going by just so many different names. It's unbelievable. You need to basically go out and like look at the articles, read through, and then take that documentation to the grocery store. Most food is just not edible for children. It's going to end up putting them into a really compromised position. And I think of this one little kid, Rylan, that I've been working with, and he was a really big disaster for his teacher to deal with. And it's so sad because this kid's so highly creative, but he was one of the kids that would throw a temper tantrum.
Right.
And he would just absolutely destroy the classroom. They had to kick all the kids out of the room just to be able to like help calm him down. I was working with him and we had huge benefits. Like his tantrums went down by 80% within the first week of working with me. We had to do quite a bit of stuff, but one element of it was he had these like really strange eating habits, and it was like his digestive system and tummy were like out of control. And it's almost like his anger was coming out because he was coming from a home where there was a lot of brokenness and there was a lot of fights and he didn't know how to express himself. So I worked on his nervous system. Cognitive lightning was a part of it. Some other products were a part of it. and just changed his diet a bit. And it was like, there was an immediate behavior change.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now it's like the little guy, he's not being treated like, oh, you're some monster, we have to close the room off. Like he's not having those tantrums in the same way. His behavior's had a 180. That kind of depth of work will often come more from doing one-on-one consultations with me. So the nutrition consultations, the herbal medicine and iridology analysis work is what will take someone to a really great level. If they're like really deep down the path of having a lot of health issues, sometimes it's better to just dive in to the work, but you can always start with the products too. It just depends where you're at.
Yeah. You know, it's like really, really moving to hear that story because, you know, so many children in the world, and this reminds me of one of our projects, the APEC, the After School Care Program, where they may be in somewhere like school, like an institution, where they lash out. But there's always a deeper rooted thing, like nutrition, what's going on at home, mentally, emotionally, physically, like how are they being treated? Like what is the environment? And so I always think about like, what if we treated children in the world with that level of curiosity when something like that's happening, that level of support. And the reason I use that project as an example is because in the after school care program, they don't use like disciplinary action. Like, for example, a lot of those kids, they would just get suspended or they would get detention.
Right.
What happens is when they get to 16, they go to juvenile. When they get to 18, they go to prison. So it's actually the preschool to prison pipeline. So it's so deep what you're saying because there's so much behind it. And it's like, if that kid then goes to, you know, be misunderstood and not get the support that they need and just be labeled the bad kid, they're never even given a chance to fulfill their potential.
Exactly.
At all. So you're literally like it sounds like, oh, this simple. It's not just change behavior. You're literally giving them a new lease on life. You know, a new way to be seen from the people around them, to see the world around them, to be healthy, to be happy. And like that child now has a way better chance at living a different life, you know, making friends, fitting in at school, like whatever that thing may be, you know, and that is so huge.
Absolutely.
And, like imagine that being disseminated on a global scale in a mass way. You know?
Well, every behavior is always calling out for some kind of attention often. And so it's like understanding what is it that's going on. Anger is sometimes just a sign of an unmet need. Often is a sign of an unmet need. So the willingness to be curious rather than to become defensive is a superpower. Obviously, it's like every adult can learn how to do that better. Every kid can learn how to do that better. But what's very interesting is actually children are known to become way more intelligent and healthy mentally in their responses and more resilient long term, the more that they see adults be calm and secure. Every time that a parent lashes out, it has a negative impact and injury on their brain and their nervous system. It goes so deep. There's research about this. I've been reading a book by James Dobson. He's had his book Dare to Discipline out for like 40 years. He's a really great author on just raising children. And one thing that he speaks about is he's like, there's a difference between discipline and punishment. He's like, you really need to be discerning as a parent or as a human being to see like, hey, rather than getting reactive to the behavior, get curious, because maybe it's like, hey, they're just feeling less loved. They're feeling like someone else is getting more attention than them. Maybe it's something in their food. So get curious. Don't just be so like one-minded and think, oh, the diet's great. It's good for me. It should be good for them. It's like everybody has different needs. So it's being willing and open to looking at that rather than just kind of calling it quits. So I think for me, my hope with people is always to get really curious about whatever health issue they have. And rather than looking at it as like a crutch and I'm a victim to it and just to happen, it's like, how have I been an active participant? And look everywhere. It's like, if you're going to do something, go 100%. That's how I am. So it's like, look at the emotional, environmental factors, look at the food, look at the kind of friends that they have around them, and try to like read between the lines and get curious, get help, get some therapeutic support. A lot of ADHD is rooted in some sort of emotional disturbance. So the whole acting out or being angry or being like confused and like in a fog, sometimes that's just unprocessed grief. Quite literally, someone could be in such a deep grief process, be completely not even in tune with their feelings. They're just cut off and numb. And it's like, meanwhile, that kid really needs someone that's going to help them reach in and feel held and safe and secure to feel those emotions so that they don't feel like they're foggy. And this doesn't just go for kids. This goes for adults just as much. I remember one of the things that I found out actually about the cognitive lightning was 3 years ago. I lost my best friend of 15 years. She was my friend since high school, and it was like a surprise death. She like had drowned 3 weeks after she had gotten engaged. It was so dark, and it was awful. So at that time, I remember I was like spiraling out. Like I was like waking up spiraling, just like, oh my gosh, like there was a vacuum of energy just like bringing me really low. And the only way that I was able to like think clearly and do my work was taking that product. The herbs I actually found out later were for processing grief, the Brahmi in it.
Wow.
Brahmi is actually supportive for grief. And so it's like you almost have to look at grief like an injury or like a concussion. I've had concussions. I've been knocked. Like I was a boxer, competitive boxer, and I know what it's like to get a concussion. Going through losing a best friend was like going through a concussion. Literally, it's like a brain injury. So when people are in more of a fragile, sensitive space, they need to treat themselves with not just like therapy. They need the physical tools. It wasn't enough for me to just get therapy. I was getting that support. I had to take tools that supported my nervous system. That was what really made a difference. And then for those people that come to me, which I have so many clients where they get support, but it's like, oh, well, I'm taking the B vitamins, magnesium, and I'm still feeling like, I'm like, okay, then it's not the right thing, or it's not the right dose. I'm sorry, but like, no matter what, when you find the thing that works, you will know that it works because you will feel the difference. So that's my work with any person that I work one-on-one with, is we figure out what works and we make it happen. Because if we haven't found it, it's not a thing to like give up, which so many people are so quick to. It's like, no, like get on that horse and let's keep going.
Yes. And, you know, like, it kind of makes me think of this whole idea of, like, you mentioned, like, the magic pill, but it's, like, this idea of, like, okay, just take a pill and, like, it's done. This, like, fast healing culture that's, like, especially, like, Western medicine, where it's just, like, this is going to change everything, this, like, you know, and there's a lot of conditioning around that.
Yeah.
So I also hear in what you're saying that it's like it is important to also like sometimes give things a process or time to integrate or to make some change, because if we're going through something like what you went through, you know, this like extremely deep grief. And one of our other episodes, we were talking about healing heartbreak and healing grief and this process, like these multiple stages. And, you know, we can go through it in so many different ways in our own ways in our daily life. And there's a lot of fastness to our culture where we're expected to just get up and go. But if we don't have the support, it's like it gets buried.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like, what are you living for? Because that's where it will take you to, right? When there's not really the right support. It's like, oh, like, am I just going to deal with this subpar level of existence? And I know for myself and a lot of people that I work with, it's like, we are here to live like a vital, full expression life. So we're not tolerating subpar.
Yes.
Right? Like that's my attitude, and that's the energy that I bring into the work that I do.
You bring that energy everywhere. Ever since the moment I met you. I was telling Joe just before we started, I said, I remember the day we first met like 10 years ago, like where, you know, it was your iridology workshop.
Yeah.
And I had attended because I was like, this sounds amazing. I had never heard of it. Actually, iridology, sorry to say, but I had not heard of it before.
Most people probably have never heard of it.
Yes.
A lot of people have not heard of it. Yeah. And just understanding, it's like iridology analysis is the study of the eyes to see what's going on in the body.
Yeah.
And so the Egyptians, they were known to have hieroglyphics with like indications of, oh, the knee area is here, the brain area is above the pupil, and, you know, we have the liver, and the entire body is mapped out. But it's been kind of, you know, it's not really popular in Canada. It's more Austria, Germany, and Australia that it's most popular. So that's where they keep fronting the research and the development of this, to the point where now we've gotten to the point where we can see, oh, your personality, ooh, what kind of partner could mesh really well. So I even knew, before even I met my current partner, I knew what kind of eyes were best to be able to match with mine.
That is why.
Because you take the Myers-Briggs study, you know, the test of, you know, like in ENFP or INFJ, whatever, all these different combinations.
Right.
There's elements where an iridologist that's been trained in more of the, like the Austrian methods, which is something I learned in 2020. that is something that you can apply to people, and you can help to support them in understanding like their personality and what kind of support they might need, or people that would be helpful for them as friends or mentors.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it is so, so deep and like so profound. And, so yeah, so you carry that energy of just like vivaciousness and vibrancy and like power and wisdom. And, I think it's also shows in all of the research and the continued education that you do. Like you're constantly reading, learning, doing research. Every time I talk to you, you're like doing a new course, or you've studied a new like a new clinical study, or even just being in your home. I've seen this gorgeous library of like these really fascinating like textbooks. And so I just also want to highlight that, because a lot of the developments that you are creating are rooted in really powerful medical research, holistic healing experience, the experiences of many other medical doctors, naturopaths, and also through your own, over a decade of practicing and sharing this with others. So it's like, it's just amazing, because I feel in my heart, not to like bring this too much into the conversation, but I think some people sometimes have judgments or preconceived notions about people and age and what a wise person like looks like. And you're like this young, gorgeous, woman who's like can be so playful and fun. Like you're also a singer and you have like this artistry to you. But I mean, when you speak and through the transformation you have created in others, it is absolutely revolutionary. So I just want to highlight that, because I think sometimes people need to open their heart and open their mind and their awareness to understand that wisdom doesn't always come with elderly age. And wisdom doesn't always come with a certain type of person. It's actually something that is deeper than that. And you carry it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think what I'm interested about is like, what is your vision right now for the next stages for Jillian, and for also what you're creating, what you're researching, what you're working on, and the transformation you see it bringing into the world?
Yeah, definitely a lot more exposure doing talks like this, more expos, webinars in general. I love having the opportunity to speak and share my wisdom. I'm always continually taking clients on. So right now I'm really focusing on women that are looking for support in hormonal health and support with their focus and just going through the whole process. I call it the Vibrant Vixen program. So that process is really deep, and it's an ability to establish also like a deeper relationship with them, and to do a lot of different types of work with them in terms of nutrition healing, emotional healing, setting them up with other adjacent kind of practitioners that can be really helpful for their journey, getting the right herbs, the right supplements, knowing the right doses. So there's a lot in that I'm doing right now. And I also have, my supplement company is continuing to grow. My team has continued to grow. I keep having to bring on new like staff and people to help me out. So it's been really rewarding, this work. I got into it really young. So when people are wondering, well, like you look so young, it's like, yeah, I got into it when I was 16. Right? And I'm in my 30s now. So I've had a lot of time. And it's like when you're learning, when you're 16 and you're thirsty for wisdom, it's like you're soaking it up like a sponge. So I'm grateful. I was exposed to it really young. And I just keep seeing amazing transformations of people over the years. So I'm going to continue my work in what I'm doing and speaking and taking on clients.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And we have a final question that we ask everybody every episode. And so if you could be a catalyst of change in changing something in the world right now, what would it be?
I feel like something that I've observed about our society as a whole, that's been a real crutch for people having progress in their life in almost and it affects financial, it affects relationships, it affects career, is the issue of people lacking self-esteem and self-worth.
Mm.
When you are lacking self-esteem and self-worth, you do not take on the things that you're really meant to or that God gave you purpose to do, because there's so much, there's almost so much like self-obsession slash like scarcity and self-hatred stuff that gets locked into that, where people diminish themselves and then they're not really stepping into the places that they need to. So I feel like a lot of the work that I've done has been about improving and transforming people's self-esteem and self-worth so that that worthiness is going to attract better friendships, people that really honor you and show up for the hard conversations and don't betray you and leave you like nitty-gritty, people that will give you a chance to step into like your power and your authentic voice in your work, and not just be someone that is someone's like, you know, like, oh, you're just here to serve me. Like, I feel like the culture of our society as a whole, I observed growing up on MTV, growing up on really strict ideas about how we need to perform or how we need to show up. I think that there's so much congealment of a person's true nature that happens that affects the soul's self-esteem and self-worth. And when people start to break out of those molds, and when they take on the harder conversations with their parents, with their friends, and say like, hey, whether this person stays or go, I'm going to take a stand for myself, you gain access to more of your own self-love and self-worth and power. It may not always look like that in the moment, but it does have a domino effect, and it's like claiming more space, claiming more authenticity, claiming more self-worth. You become way more unstoppable. So I think that's the thing that I want to see transform the most, is people's self-worth and self-esteem.
Oh my gosh. This is so deep and profound. I would love to have another episode where we just dive into that, honestly. That's such an important topic. And the way that you articulated that and the importance of it is spot on. Like, it's just so, so true. And there's a lot more there, but I think we'll call it for the moment. Yeah. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on Catalysts of Change, because you are such a catalyst of change. You have been, you know, that's like, that is your part of your true nature. You know, you're this amazing unstoppable force. You know, you mentioned being unstoppable. So I'm also very excited to continue to witness the evolution and expansion and all of the goodness. Yes, the world needs you and your creations and your wisdom and talent and gifts and light. And, you know, we haven't even gotten into all of your like artistry. So we'll save that for another. We'll
save it for another episode. Love it. Thanks so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Thank you. Amazing. Yes. So I want to welcome everyone to click all the links in the description so you can connect with Jillian. And as always, share if this resonated for you. We want to hear your feedback.
Like, love to hear anything that you have to share, and anything that you're curious about, any questions that you have. Yeah, be very appreciated.
Yes. And as always, just be a catalyst of change in your own world, in your own life and communities. And we will see you in our next episode.